remember I had a coach, right? Horrible coach. Taught me a lot about some things, but he was really like good at hitting me on the head like I was a nail with a hammer. And so when I started having emotional talks with him, he was like, I'm not set up for this, dude. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, you're a coach? He's like, well, I mean, I'm kind of a coach, but not really. And he didn't know how to pour into me. I'm like, well, what kind of advice would you give your kid? He's like, I just tell my kid to do whatever he wants. I was like, cool, I'm gonna shut this business down. And we shut down a business that was doing 7 figures because I had the wrong person that I was trusting for advice, right? It's not about getting skills or having a coach or having a mentor. It's about having the right community. And so when you're talking to a buyer and you're internally depleted and you're not confident and you're not secure and you're not assured of yourself, how do you think you show up for them? So what a lot of people don't talk about in real estate and in sales in general is that the fact that this is an inside game, right? What does that mean? What does that mean? Real estate and sales is an inside game because the process of learning what to do, what to say, how to do it, how to say it is one thing, but the confidence is another thing, right? And when you're out there and you're alone and you're by yourself, you feel like you're on an island, right? And I'll tell you, like, as an agent, as a salesperson, since I was 17 years old, I've always been in a community. Why have I always been in a community? Because I know that, like, when I was 17, I was blessed with having a great manager. His name was Mike Meditz. And I want to share a quick story with you because everybody thinks that, like, just because you wear a nice shirt, you're making money all the time. But let me tell you, as an entrepreneur, I've had many years that I made no money, lost money, or borrowed money to keep myself afloat, to keep the lights on, right? And I've been as low as 700 grand in the hole, right? And I've also been as high as having almost $800,000 cash in the bank at one point with assets and paid off Range Rover, and things were great. And you were like, oh my God. And how does that dichotomy happen where one day you're rich and one day you're poor? Well, it's an inside game, right? Some days I'm in great shape and other days, like, I'm 30 pounds overweight. Like, what the hell just happened there? And what happened is that the inside, right, the mind took over and not in the right way. And so I want to share a story. When I was 17 years old, we went to my older brother got a letter in the mail because we lived in the nice part of town. And so Cutco sends out these mailers. They get lists and they send out the mailers. And my older brother got the list, and they were offering a base pay of $14 per appointment. Now, nobody reads the per appointment. Nobody understands. We're just kids in high school. But I saw that and I'm like, oh my God. And my older brother and I used to fight a lot. So he knew that I heard him talking about this $14 an hour opportunity. And we were working for our parents for like $5 or $6, $7 an hour back in 1999. And somehow I hear him have the call in my parents' bedroom. And I go upstairs and I hit the redial button because he took the letter and he ripped it up because he didn't want me to see it. Because we were fighting that day or something. Who knows, right? It was like 20 years ago. So back then, and my parents still have a landline, I hit the redial button, right? And they have like a home phone system. So I could see who he was calling. So this lady picks up the phone, Vector Marketing, how can I help you? And I'm like, yeah, hey, we got this letter in the mail. And she's like, oh, cool, tell me more. I booked an appointment and I went in with my brother. My mom dropped us off. It's 110 degrees outside in the shade in the middle of Bakersfield summer. And Mike Meditz and his girlfriend, Corey, right? I don't remember a lot of my teachers' names that I spent 2 years in school with, but I remember the people that had impact. And Mike and Corey were there, and Mike drove a blue Honda Prelude. He wore this really baggy, old school suit. I'm pretty sure it was brown, and his girlfriend was smoking hot. Right? I love you, Corey. She's smoking hot. And he's got the car, this is back during the Rice Rocket era. He's got the car, he's got the suit, he's got this nice office, nice part of town. And I'm like, man, this dude is living the life. And we started to sell Cutco. And I remember we were standing there waiting and my mom was late for whatever reason. She had a restaurant back then. So for whatever reason, she was late. And we're sitting there, it's like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour. And finally I was like, you know what, dude, fuck it, let's walk home. And we're like 9 miles from our parents' house, right? It's far, it's 110 degrees. I'm dressed up, my brother's dressed up, and we start walking home. And Mike sends, not because we were the rich kids in the right part of town, because he's a good dude. Mike sends his girlfriend in the Prelude to pick us up. He's like, yo, go find those kids. And I worked so hard that summer because I didn't want to let Mike and Corey down because they were so good to us, right? They were so good to us. They cared about us. They didn't care just about making money. They cared about us as human beings, right? And when you're in the right community of people that care about you as a human, you want to make them proud as much as you want to make money and make your family proud. It's this weird thing that like, it's like hard to explain sometimes because you're like, I want to work hard for Mike. I want Mike to be able to walk on stage, grab the trophy and say, yes, I did it. You want Mike to have that success. And every day I showed up to the office. Every morning I showed up to the office. Somehow I got there. Me and my brother shared a car. It was not fun because he was strong and I was not. And somehow or the other, I got to the office every morning around 6 to 7 o'clock. And I did 2 to 3 hours of prospecting time, right? Because when I got an appointment, I would tell Mike, I got an appointment. Mike would high five me and I was so excited. When I closed a sale, I'd call my dad, I'd call Mike. Mike was so excited, right? And he never said, hey, don't call me after every sale, right? And like some days we do 9 appointments, have like 4 or 5 sales. At the end of the day, he's like, hey bro, how'd you do today? I wanted to share a story because I almost quit. And if I would have quit, I don't know what life would have held for me, but I would have quit on something that I love doing. And I love communication, right? I love helping people get something that's gonna benefit them for not just like a short period of time, but for like a long period of time. About 4 weeks in, when I started working off of referrals and I stopped working off my parents' friends and my friends' parents, I went to this lady's house. Now, I don't know what happened, but I walk in, she says, you don't look like a Vikram. She sits me in a dark, formal dining room. She's loaded. That's like, these houses are massive. She's got a big, huge RV. They own a beach house, right? It was one of my friend's moms, right? Grandma. And the mom had bought like $1,000 off of me, which would be like $1 million in today's dollar. And she's like, oh my God, grandma's gonna buy everything. She's gonna love this. And she goes, well, you didn't sound like what you look like. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know how to sound, but this is just who I am. So can I come in, right? Because like I always just like push my way through the door. She's like, yeah, sure, come in. I come in, she goes into the kitchen. She leaves me in her formal dining room for about 4 or 5 minutes. And then she comes out, she's like, you need to leave. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you need to leave. And she's like, you misrepresented, she said something. And I was really hurt by it. And I went to Mike and I said to Mike, bro, this ain't for me. And he goes, what do you mean? It's like, you're crushing it. You're number one in the office for the summer. He's like, you're leading the division. Like, you're crushing it. Like, what do you mean? He's like, the product, like something happened with Cutco. Did you hear a story? Like, what happened? And I'm like, no. And I told him the story and he's like, hey bro, come into my office. He shuts the door and he's like, sits down next to me and he's like, hey man, you can't control other people and you can control yourself. And he's like, I'm sorry that happened to you. He's like, I don't know what happened and it is what it is, but I'm sorry it happened to you. And he leaned in and he had empathy and he had concern. He's like, if you want to wrap up this and give back the bag of Cutco and, quit, you can. He's like, but could we just chat for a few minutes about what happened? And I go, yeah. And we talked for a few minutes. And after a few minutes, I might have even had a couple tears in my eyes. He's like, you know what, dude, just cancel the rest of your day. I'm like, what? He's like, cancel the rest of your day. Like, just go home, hang out with your friends. He's like, you've worked so hard this summer. You're 17. You just graduated from high school. Go home and hang out. And the sales manager doesn't tell their salespeople to leave because that's how they make money. And I said, well, I have appointments. He's like, it doesn't matter. Just reschedule them. Like, they're not going to, like, dude, you're a 17-year-old kid working harder than their kid worked in one day all summer. Like, they're not going to care. He's like, what time do you call these people? I'm like, between 7 and 9 and 7 and 9. He's like, you think they're going to have a problem rescheduling? And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, reschedule. And I'm like, well, I don't want to anymore. He's like, just do it. I'm like, I don't want to. He's like, why? I was like, because I realized that you helped me like look at life differently. I hope I never forget that story, because empathy and compassion are far greater than any skill you can have. The problem is we're so busy thinking about ourselves that we forget that there's another person there going through something, right? In sales, the biggest challenge for salespeople is that we don't understand that we're here to solve a problem that the prospect doesn't even know they have, right? Like when I went to Mrs. Jones' house and she had a set of Henkel's knives, she didn't think she had a problem with her cutlery, but I had to show her that she had a problem with her cutlery through a short presentation. When you're working with a buyer or a seller, they don't think they have a problem. They think that it's super easy to buy and sell a home and they can do it on their own if they wanted to, but they don't want to do the headache and do it. So they're going to bring an agent in, but for that, they don't want to pay a lot of money because agents don't have a lot of value, because nobody sits down and walks them through the complexities of the transaction. Mrs. Jones didn't think she had a problem with her Henkel's knives until you ask her, well, do your knives ever get dull? How often do you take them to the sharpener? How often do you wish you could put them in the dishwasher? How often do you wish you could do this? And she's like, well, I wish that all the time. Well, how often do you get scared that if you break one of the knives, you just threw $100 down the toilet? She's like, all the time. So instead of utilizing the tool, she's concerned about it. How much stress does that cause you? Well, it doesn't cause me stress per se, but it's something I think about. Oh, okay, well, if there was a better way to have something that you just could use, because it's not like we're chefs here, would that be beneficial? Oh my God, right? So we have to show people the nuances that they didn't even realize. And so when you're talking to a buyer, right, and you're internally depleted and you're not confident and you're not secure and you're not assured of yourself, how do you think you show up for them? Or if you just got your face kicked in from 15, 20, 30, 40 calls, and you're not pouring back into yourself, you don't have the right people to pour into you, and you show up to that buyer, how do you think the conversation goes with the buyer? Do you think they're like, oh my God, I really want to work with this person, this is going to be amazing? Or do you think they go, well, I mean, I like the person, but something was off, right? If you're off, if you're not being poured into by the right community, the right people, right? You're not, when I left real estate, I remember I had a coach, right? Horrible coach. Taught me a lot about some things, but he was really good at hitting me on the head like I was a nail with a hammer. And so when I started having emotional talks with him, he was like, I'm not set up for this, dude. And I was like, well, what do you mean? You're a coach. He's like, well, I mean, I'm kind of a coach, but not really. And he didn't know how to pour into me. I'm like, well, what kind of advice would you give your kid? He's like, I just tell my kid to do whatever he wants. I was like, cool, I'm going to shut this business down. Unfortunately, I had the wrong coach. Fortunately for maybe, or unfortunately, I don't know. And we shut down a business that was doing 7 figures because I had the wrong person that I was trusting for advice, right? It's not about getting skills or having a coach or having a mentor. It's about having the right community. If you don't have the right community, if you don't have a Mike Meditz there, right? If you don't have a Vikram Deol there that's been through tough shit, that can actually pour into you, that's had family issues, had run-ins with the law, had problems with money, had team members steal, right? What more? Financial ruins. If you don't have somebody who's been through what you have experienced or are experiencing, if you haven't had somebody we had $15 million in escrow, and I was still wetting the bed every night thinking about, oh my God, what about July? Oh my God, what about September? Oh my God, what about August? Right? Because at that point, we didn't have a consistent flow. We didn't have the consistency with our team. So we would have great months that were insane and followed by periods of not great months. So how do we create that consistency? Oh, okay, we have to have better structure. We need to get in at 7 o'clock in the morning. We need a role play, right? We need to spend 15 to 20 minutes every day talking about mindset, right? Because every day the agent comes back in and something happened in their life and they're depleted. Oh, my girlfriend did this. Oh, my parents said this. Oh my God, I was with the buyer that wanted to buy, and he texted me this morning and said, hey, I put an offer in with somebody else, right? Every morning we get depleted. And so every morning we role played, we built our skills, we built our confidence, and then we built each other. Hey, tell something nice that tell Ben something nice, Jay, that you saw Ben do yesterday. Hey, say something nice about this person. Hey, say something nice about your team member. Hey, what did Jessica do well today? Hey, what did Jamie do well today? And we started to build each other up. because this game is hard, right? It's not just, hey, let's role play and practice. And what nobody talks about in this industry, what nobody talks about in reality is how effing hard this actually is and how lonely this game is. It's, hey, make more calls. Great. Well, if you're depleted, you're not going to pick up the phone. If you're in a rut, you're not going to do the work you need to do to get to where you want to go. Because internally you're depleted, you're unmotivated, right? How do you have the discipline to go to the gym when internally you don't feel worthy of having a healthy body? How do you have the discipline when emotionally, spiritually, you don't feel like you're worthy of helping people because you're like, oh, well, I'm not as good as so-and-so. Well, how do you know you're not? Well, because so-and-so has been around longer. That doesn't mean shit. You guys, I've been in this game for 12 years. I can tell you some of the top agents that have been around for 10, 15, 18 years, their processes are horrible. The way they write offers, the way they communicate with other agents, the way they treat each other. It's disgusting. And yet you have the work, but because we have imposter syndrome, we put ourselves down, all right? Peel off the clothes, peel off the layers, peel off the masks, right? You can only talk to somebody about pain that's been through 17 years of therapy. If you haven't had therapy, then you're not gonna talk about the things that come from it. And you're gonna be like, oh, well, that shit doesn't work. It takes forever. Of course it takes forever. Because every day somebody kicks us as we're walking out the front fucking door. This game of life is hard, but it's rewarding. The best is here, and yet there's so much more to come. Love yourself, honor yourself, treat yourself the way that you treat other people. You build other people up all day long. Build yourself up the same way. Look, it's not about doing more social media and more funny shit. It's about what do you do for you every morning and every night? How do you fill your bucket? What are the things you enjoy doing, not for social media likes, because that's actually internally filling your soul. So I appreciate you. I know how hard this game is. If you want me to be your Mike Meditz and you want my community to pour back into your soul every day, every week, so that you never have to feel alone anymore, there's a link somewhere, wherever you're watching this. There's probably a link somewhere below. Book a time in on my calendar. Let's jam. Let's see what's going on in your world. If you feel like we can help you, let's talk. But put the fear to the side, right? Put the fear to the side, put the ego to the side, and just allow yourself to feel the emotions and know that they were put in your body for a reason. And the reason why they're put there is because they're here to help us be better. So I appreciate you. I'll see you on the next one. Like, subscribe, whatever. All the things that you're supposed to do. Hit the notification bell. All the things that my team tells me I need to tell you guys to do. So hit the like, the subscribe, the whatever, the notification. But more importantly, fill your bucket every morning. Fill your bucket every night. I'll see you soon.